Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. All right. Good morning. Day. We are going to go through the slides that I posted about 15 minutes ago. Um, those slides are the next in a series of agricultural slides that we have been dealing with. This isn't directly, well, it is. It's a different genre of agriculture, I guess you can say. So, without further ado, um, let's get to the slides. I don't really have any announcements to make. Again, if you hand in something like give me a private message and this and that, I don't really have anything to blab about in the beginning like I usually do. Do I? No, that's pretty much it. You are signing the attendance, all that stuff. Don't forget about that technology classroom thing that Mr. Ray's made everyone sign up for. I think there's a daily attendance in there too. You have to sign into all of your classes individually, but you do have to sign that one. I think that's like the homeroom one. I'm sure you guys know more about it than I do. All right, we are on slide 1, which is lesson 8. What role do old growth forests and tree plantations have? Okay. Slide 2, as usual, is the agenda. Look at it at your leisure. Slide 3 is a review from Integrated Pest Management, IPM. That's what we did last time. That was already included on your quiz. So review that again if you find any issues with comprehension, if you don't remember things like that, because that will come back on the unit test. Slide 4 is more of the review from IPM, just a little added. So you can look at that at your leisure. And then slide 5 is our objective for the day. Now, slide 5 has a couple videos on it, which are very important. So, slide 5, the objective for today's slides is to be able to explain the significance and inherent value of old growth forests and to explain the role of tree plantations in forestry. Okay, so growth forests and tree plantations are the two things that we're going to discuss today. These two intro videos, definitely check them out. Old growth forests, the first video, the first link is only a couple of minutes, but it really gives you an idea, a good idea of what an old growth forest is. All right, so please check that out. Talks about what you find in an old growth forest, what happens when an old growth forest gets knocked down, and all this other stuff. So please check it out. It's a quick 2 minutes. The world's tallest tree link, that is pretty cool because there are trees that are just massive. We're going to see one in these slides, but you want to check out that video. Again, it's just a minute or two, and it's really cool if you've never seen trees like this before. Slide 6 talks about one of these trees, and it's called the President. They name it the President. It is a tree that took 126 frames, 126 pictures to properly capture. It's huge. It's 250 feet tall climbers. So when you look at this first picture, you see the guy in the orange jacket down bottom, right? When you go to slide 7, if you look carefully, and I'll let you guys play that game on your own, you can spot the climber in that section. And then further up the tree in slide 8, you can try to spot a climber in that frame. And then in slide 9, they show the top of the tree, and there you can see right in the middle the guy with the orange jacket, right? 250 feet high. Slide 10 is the cool. Slide 10 shows you the whole thing. So that is the picture. Those little circles are where people are. It's just a massive, massive tree, 250 feet tall, almost 3,000 years old. I have not seen trees like this because these trees are sort of restricted to the redwoods of California and giant sequoias that you find in the Pacific Northwest of our country. And I haven't been out yet, so hopefully I get out there and I get to see these things because they're supposedly really, really massive. So big that I don't know if you've ever seen it, but one of the trees I know in the redwood forest or whatever in California, one of the tree's trunks is so big that they actually cut a huge hole in it and you can drive your car through the trunk of the tree. Of course, they wouldn't do that now because it's not environmentally friendly, but I think they did that many, many years ago. And they actually made a road where you can drive through the trunk of the tree. That's how big these things are, right? So, slide 11. slide 11 shows you a bit of a timeline on how to define an old growth forest. All right. So when you look at the succession, the stages of a forest, you see, from year 0 to year 15, or, so you see bare soil and you see herbs on the ground, little grasses, and that's all you really see. Around 15 years, to 30 years, you start seeing saplings and shrubs. Saplings are just very, very small trees with a small diameter. They're young trees, right? At around 60 years, you start to see a young forest. So now these saplings have grown, these shrubs have grown, there's more growth in there. And that goes from about 60 years as a young forest to about 100 years where you start to be in a more mature forest where there's older things. Once you get to 200 years and beyond, it's considered old growth forest. Okay, so many of our forests are old growth forests. They've been there for more than 200 years. And old growth forests, it's sort of interesting when you think about it. Old growth forests don't just have old things in it. Okay, you can't let that go. The old growth forest is where you're going to find all those 3,000-year-old trees, 1,000-year-old trees, right? Because they've been there for so long. They're obviously part of an old growth forest. But there are always, and you can look at the bottom on that picture, you can look at, there's always shrubs and small trees growing and being eaten by animals or being taken out by something, weather or something, or humans, and then they're coming back, right? Or fires, and then they're coming back. So an old growth forest, yes, that's where you're going to find the 500, the 1,000, the 3,000-year-old trees. What's up, guys? What's up? You are going to find all of that stuff, right? But you're also going to find some young stuff in old growth forests as well. So just to give you a hint. Hi, Brian. All right. So slide 12 is something that you have to do. Slide 12, if you see in the speaker notes, you're supposed to link a picture of an old growth ecosystem here. So find a picture online, give me the link of an old growth ecosystem. All right, just a good picture, or a couple if you want. That's fine too. Slide 13 is where you're going to link a map of an old growth forest. So there are old growth forests all over the world. So either get a world map that shows you where these old growth forests are, or get a section, like in the United States where the old growth forests are, or whatever. Through these slides, I'm going to give you a hint to where some of those are. I already have given you a hint when I was talking about California and the Pacific Northwest. Slide 14. Okay, here's the thing with old growth forests. This goes back about a month to when we started talking about primary and secondary succession, right? So if you cut an old growth forest, a cut down old growth forest, if we cut it down, if fire takes it out, if an old growth forest gets cut down, it will naturally restart and it will grow to be an old growth forest once again at some point. But that's after it goes through all those stages we saw on that timeline. It has to go through 200 years of growth, right? That's what secondary succession is. Secondary succession is when an old growth forest gets knocked down and eventually all this stuff comes back, right? So here's the thing. We use a lot of the wood in an old growth forest. The wood from these huge older trees produce a lot of lumber for our construction. So it's very big. So when you cut these old growth forests down, or when they burn down, you don't want to wait 200 years for wood to be usable again, right? And it goes through all of those stages around 200, 300 years. Alternatively, and that's what you see on slide 14, you can actually take the desired trees that you like from an old growth forest, and you can take the seeds and you can replant them on what they call a tree plantation, right? Which is like a tree farm. And then you can recut them when they're mature enough for timber. So instead of waiting and going into an old growth forest and cutting it all down and then having nothing else to do except wait another 200 years, you can actually reseed the trees that are desirable. So the big mature trees that are producing good lumber for construction and things like that, you can add there's actually tree farms, right? They call them tree plantations. And it's just a huge, huge, huge area of land where they plant trees. You can see this with Christmas trees too. They have Christmas tree farms where they plant Christmas trees and they let them grow, grow, grow. And then when they get to the right size, they cut them down and then they sell them to all of us around Christmas time. So they have all kinds of things like that, but they have these tree plantations that will grow usable timber for us, usable wood. All right. So that's that. Slide 15 talks about them a little bit, and there's a map there you can look at. It might be pretty useful for you. Tree plantations, they're not good, they're not bad, right? They're good in a sense where, they're taking out carbon dioxide and they're trees and they're producing oxygen, and that's a wonderful thing. Um, they're not good for, they're not, there's nothing bad about them. It's almost like we're putting them into a cycle, right? Like when you think about the water cycle, how water recycles, we're almost making like a tree cycle, because we're planting them, we're growing them till they're mature, we're cutting them down, we're growing them. So we're using these plantations as sort of like a recycling spot for trees, which isn't a bad thing, right? It all depends on their scale. It depends on what the objective is, and it depends on some socioeconomic and environmental impacts for where they're implemented. What that means, in bottom line, is that tree plantations take up a lot of space. They take up a lot of area. You have to have thousands and thousands and thousands of acres to grow all of these trees, right? So if you have that space, that's wonderful. If you do have these tree plantations, there's not much else you can do on this land. So you can't use it. Can't use it for farming and economic means, right? You can't use it to live on if there's overpopulation in an area because you're growing these trees. You are So there's a difference when you do secondary succession. When you grow these trees, one of the things about it is that they grow at the same rate, so at the same height, right? So in a natural old growth forest, you have trees that are really big, you have trees that are medium, you have trees that are small, and you have shrubs on the ground. That's ideal because sunlight can get through. There's not a canopy of leaves, right? The canopy is the top of the trees. But if all the trees are at different levels, the sunlight can penetrate and get to the ground, and the shrubs grow, and the animals have food, and everybody's happy. Okay. When you have a tree plantation, it's only the trees that you want to harvest, and they tend to be the same height because you're planting them all at the same time or relatively close. So the canopy is one big, huge sheet. And what that does is that blocks the sun. So a lot of the sun doesn't make it down to the ground, and a lot of that ground stuff doesn't grow. So you won't get a lot of shrubs growing. You won't get a lot of berries and stuff like that growing on the ground because the sun can't penetrate. So animals aren't very fond of these forests because of that, right? So they grow thick and they grow high, and they block the sun. So they can't really take care of the animals in that environment. So that's sort of one of the things that could happen with a tree plantation. Slide 16 tells you probably the biggest problem with tree plantations. And if you take all the seeds that you find great and you're planting them in this tree plantation, the only problem is, like, some of these things are such a large scale, like it says here, at a national level, thousands and thousands of hectares, right? Remember what a hectare is, size of a couple soccer fields, right? So thousands of hectares. And even in Chile, South America, or South Africa, Brazil, Indonesia, they have millions of hectares signed for growing these trees, for tree plantations. They've regrown these trees, which again is great. Millions and millions and millions of hectares growing trees, right? Which is helping with our atmosphere, but they're using it for, they're going to cut these down and they use them for timber, and that's okay. Biggest problem is these are what we call a monoculture, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. We had monocultures and we had polycultures, right? And a monoculture was all of the same, right? It was one type of thing. And a polyculture was many different types of things. I think I used the flowers across the street at the church as an example in my video, where I said, here's a yellow flower, right? And if there were only yellow flowers here and something happened to them, all the flowers would be gone. But we had yellow flowers and we had purple flowers, right? So if something happens to the yellow flowers, maybe the purple flowers are different. They're biodiverse. So they would survive and you'd still have flowers. And I think I was talking about feeding bees and stuff like that. Same thing with these trees. They're growing them in a monoculture. So that's really dangerous, because if a pest or a disease comes in and starts infiltrating this millions and millions of hectares, these trees are going to have no chance. So there's no biodiversity, right? They're all basically the same. And if there's no biodiversity, it's very, very difficult to to fight a pest or a disease when it comes to that. All right. Also, because of the whole canopy thing and because there's not a lot of sun gets to the ground, you don't get a lot of flora. You don't get a lot of fauna. You don't get a lot of bushes and trees that are living and dying and living and dying. All that living and dying and living and dying on the floor of the forest keeps the soil fertile. So if you don't have a lot of growth on the ground, you don't have a lot of nutrients recycling through the soil. So that could be a problem with tree plantations. All right. So the trees grow just fine, but the area becomes sort of unusable or unfriendly or undesirable for everything else. All right. Slide 17 is what you are doing. So you had a couple videos to watch in the objective slides. You'll be doing that. It's only a couple minutes each video, so that's way back in slide 5. Then you have 2 slides where you have to add some links, right? One was a map and one was a picture or a diagram. So don't forget to do those 2 links. And then when you get to slide 17 here, you are watching Survivors of the Firestorm. It's watch the first 16 minutes of the video. That first 16 minutes, I linked the video in the speaker notes straight to YouTube. So watch minute 0 to minute 16, and then go on to slide 18 and answer that question. You can answer the question right in the speaker note if you want. Give me a couple sentences. Don't give me a couple words. Give me something well thought out. And this talks about something called Black Saturday. You don't know what Black Saturday is because you didn't watch the video yet. So give that video a 16-minute look and then answer that question. And that's all you guys got going on for today. All right. So when you're done, you can do everything right on this slideshow, and you can just turn this slideshow in when you're done because you can answer the question on slide 18. You can link the 2 maps and the diagrams to the slides, and then that's about it. All right. That's what I got to say. I got nothing else really to say. This is a quick one today because there weren't too many slides. So you should know the difference. You should know what an old growth forest is. You should know the timeline, 200 years, old growth. You should know, and definitely watch that video in slide 5 because it really explains it well. You should know that an old growth forest contains a lot of old trees, but it also contains new things as well. All right. You should know what a tree plantation is. You should know that they are good. You should know that there are some problems with them as far as monoculture and as far as, taking up so much space that is maybe not desirable for other living things to inhabit. Right. So there's that. But other than that, I think that's it. I'm going to let you all watch this and let you all get to work. Happy that I'm checking towards the end of the day and seeing that there are quite a lot of views because I don't get too many live. Brian was live, and someone else is too. But that's all I have to say. Watch the vid, check it out, do your work, turn it in, stay safe, do everything. We're going to get out of this soon, I hope, and maybe we'll see each other. Maybe we won't. But if we don't, we definitely got to all get together when this is over and have some sort of senior picnic bash thing when it's safe to do so. But I'll talk to you guys soon. Be careful. Be safe.